So their solidarity is, we stand with the, I don't know, the Free Syrian Army, for example.
Has society changed their own ways in order to boycott?
All I can do is not go to a certain shop.
The money McDonald's is going to use for that money.
Living in London, every day there's a protest, everyone on the Instagram's got a flag. Boycotting is an effective tool for social change. Agree or disagree? So the statement is, boycotting is an effective tool for social change. Please discuss.
So why do you think why do you agree?
It works. I think boycotting works.
In what context?
I think you've seen, for example, the boycotts that happened recently. They've got so many banks to withdraw funding from a company called Elbit Systems, which provide missiles and from the UK to Israel. Yeah. So many banks have reduced their investments and wiped off their investments. They're talking billions or millions towards Israel because of the boycotts, because of the backlash. So that proves it's effective.
That's one or two scenarios. Now, living in London, every day there's a protest, everyone on the Instagram's got a flag, everyone's doing this, everyone's doing that. Specifically to that scenario. Yeah, I don't see any worldly change at all changing in the environment of the Middle East. You want to use that as an example? Again, there's protests. My own friends have got flags, they don't eat certain brands, they don't go to certain shops. Yeah, I don't see anyone in the Middle East changing or helping. Even countries within the Middle East who are against certain affirmative actions haven't done anything. And they've got uproar from their citizens, whether it's moral actions, whether humanitarian actions. I haven't seen any change in the last 10, 20 years.
No, but we have to look at, let's say, if we're boycotting companies that fund Israel, and then we boycott them, their funds now towards Israel are going to be lower. Yeah. So, for example, if we didn't boycott, let's say Israel was to have 100 missiles, obviously it's a lot more, but with the boycott now, it's gone to 90. So that's 10 missiles less. It seems like not a big number, but those 10 missiles could have killed 100 people. And that's 100 lives saved just because we've boycotted McDonald's or Coca-Cola or anything like that.
So you think that because of the boycott, that, for example, a country like Israel is receiving less funding, but then you have America who's taking taxpayer money and giving it straight to Israel.
I get that. We have to do what we can do. So if this is all we can do, if all I can do is not go to a certain shop that's going to give them money, I'm going to avoid that shop because I'm playing my part. I'm playing my part. Even if it has a small effect of a little bit less money that's going to be given to them, then that's worth it. That's, for me, is effective.
Well, but then in your eyes, in your opinion, the ultimate boycott is don't live in the country you're in. Our country publicly supports, for example, Israel. Living in this country technically is against the boycott itself.
No, that's paying taxes. I'm not saying I don't pay taxes. No. I'm not saying I do, but that's paying taxes. That's not just living in the country.
is listening.
Right?
So is Israel.
I can take universal credit and I live here my whole life. Right?
No, but the thing, by living in this society, partaking in society, whether going to uni or traveling and doing all of that stuff, you're firmly going with the flow of it's okay. Because whether you forget tax, voting, do you vote? Does that vote make a difference? Now, we recently had elections. Did it make a massive difference boycotting certain things that certain counties haven't changed as much as you can boycott?
No, but we're not saying boycotting is going to have a massive effect. We're just saying it's going to have an effect greater than not boycotting.
But so far from the boycott that we've done now, how much of an effect have we had?
As in, to the point, I don't know. I feel like I've heard a lot of stuff looking at McDonald's. McDonald's is one of the biggest things that people boycott nowadays. I feel like I've heard and I've read a lot of different things about different people speaking about how McDonald's has been affected by branches across the globe being shut down because they didn't have enough funds to keep them running.
But is it really
them having to come up and change their
affecting Israel?
It's not really affecting
them. Is it changing
as
the law?
As in logically?
Not really, but if there's something you could do to even change a little bit.
Because I'll give you an example. Let's say some people who are Muslim owners, they disassociate themselves from the Israeli regime, for example, and they got a franchise, I don't know, a Starbucks franchise, for example. I don't drink from Starbucks, just make it clear. But why are we harming them when they have nothing got to do with what's happening in the Middle East, for example? So let's say, I'll give you an example, a real life scenario, a lot of branches in the Middle East are owned by Muslims, and they have nothing got to do with the state of Israel.
Yeah, but don't they
Why
know,
are we harming them financially?
but don't they know that them paying for that franchise?
Yeah.
No,
they don't know. They don't know.
Come on, logic.
They don't know.
do it as a business
If
opportunity
they know
themselves.
they're
They can
paying
legitimately-
rent to McDonald's.
Yeah.
They know what the money McDonald's is going to use for that money.
Yeah, but it could be anything. No, look, Uber, for example. You can say the same with that company organization. All the agents there that work for Uber as drivers and whatnot, they all could be, Muslim drivers. There's a lot of Muslim drivers on Uber, but yet Uber is one of the contributors.
I'm
to the
not
state of Israel
against
as well.
boycotting. I think
You just think it's not effective.
I just think it's not effective enough.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's effective enough, but it is effective. It does something. Even that £5 that you're gonna give, that's effective already. That's something, bro. In the end, there's nothing we can do unless we go out. The only way to hurt these people is to hurt their money. We know that. That's the only way that anything is ever gonna happen. If really, because how many people actually, if we all gather together and boycotted something, I believe it can make a big difference.
But the thing is, so you have this, but as Amir mentioned earlier, you have different of these franchises, these Israeli franchises that are opening up in Muslim countries. So we as Muslims in Western countries, we're boycotting. But then you see an increase of transactions that are happening in the Middle East. So from the Muslim countries, they're increasing while in the West they're decreasing. So no matter, we are making a change here, we're making a small change, but that change is being counteracted by the activities happening in the Middle East or in Muslim countries.
If you look at the main statement was, does boycotting affect social change, right?
No.
What was
It
it?
doesn't. No, I'm saying.
Oh yeah, okay.
It
So
doesn't.
if it doesn't affect social change,
Affects opinion.
Yeah,
Opinion.
affects opinion. So for example, you as us as Muslims have stopped going to certain establishments because of the link it has
But
to regimes.
it's already
But have-
reduced the investment.
No, but you say that.
Yeah.
Right now, as Muslims and people in London, for example, we say we're not going to go to this establishment because it promotes a certain regime that we do not agree with. But yet, we're looking at just London. If you look at the whole of UK, you think the whole of UK is following our social lead and we're the capital city. I promise you now, you might hear certain branches closing, but you're looking at predominantly Muslim locations, whether Manchester, Birmingham, London, whatnot.
I'm talking about across the globe.
Yeah, but if you're looking at, I heard in Morocco, this company got shut down. But that's a Muslim country.
I heard a few.
In America,
McDonald's
it
got shut down
in
in
Europe, it
Morocco.
hasn't changed. In UK, it hasn't changed. So people haven't made any change.
But boycotting one thing is better than not boycotting anything.
Muslim influencers should be called out for not boycotting. Muslim influencers should be called out for not boycotting.
I feel like they should be called out. So in situations like this, they've been given a platform where they have a lot of followers, a lot of ears, a lot of people are listening. And so with that platform, they are able to spread a message to who I'm assuming predominantly their listeners are Muslim. And so we all should be in support of, for example, in this current situation with Palestine, our Muslim brothers, we have this platform or the influencers have a platform where they can push their views on how to stop or make change for those Palestinians and for those Muslims and to limit the resources that Israel would have, for example.
Look, you're assessing that based on the current situation and the current climate. If
Yeah.
you look at as an overall boycotting, for example, this famous influencer is like, you know what, I don't like this brand. They don't want to sponsor me, I don't like them. That's it, guys, let's boycott them. They're gonna convert all their followers over to boycott this brand, and it's based on their personal preference. So being an influencer, you influence based on your personal preference and your personality. If your personality doesn't agree with the consensus and you want to cause a boycott, you're gonna give them power where it's not needed because that's their opinion.
Yeah, but you just said that they do have the influence to be able to change the opinion of their viewers to boycott something, and knowing that they're a Muslim. I'm assuming because the question said Muslim influencer, so they presenting to the public that they are Muslim. And I'm assuming a practicing Muslim, that's the whole vibe going on. Yeah. They know the effect that they have on the influencers, on the listeners, and they know their taklif, or they know what their responsibility is in Islamic lens is to boycott XYZ company or XYZ business, and they know the effect they have on their supporters. So if they go to, for example, let's use McDonald's again. They go to McDonald's and like, oh, everyone should get the Coca-Cola from McDonald's. That's literally the two worst things here. Go get Coca-Cola from McDonald's, oh, everyone is amazing. And you're going to see an increase people going to get McDonald's the Coca-Cola from McDonald's. If they said, no, don't get the Coca-Cola from McDonald's, then the people that get influenced by them and their viewers are obviously going to go and not get the McDonald's drink.
Look, but
And that's gonna
there's a difference between promoting something and just not, and for example, calling for it to be boycotted. We shouldn't pressure Muslim influencers who have already worked hard, escape a barrier to get into a position that they are on social media, to then put pressure on them and say, look, you're wrong, and turn on them when we should be supporting them. It's their choice in the end of the day. They might have sponsorships, they might have people who, they need to keep up their public image, and this will hurt the public image no matter what. It will make things much more difficult for them. We should be supporting them rather than putting them down.
No, I agree with your point, but they know their responsibility on being online.
You keep using the keyword responsibility. Who said it's their responsibility?
Because they know they have a responsibility. They know they have a responsibility how they present themselves.
Our Islamic organizations have a more higher responsibility.
No, I'm saying when I say responsibility,
than the average influencer.
No, because when I say responsibility, they know their effect on people. So now naturally there's going to be responsibility on them on how they present things to their viewers.
So you think they must?
No, I'm just saying if they were going to drink a drink on the show, on their TikTok, wherever it is, let it not be a drink that's clearly being boycotted by the rest of the Muslims.
That's not calling for boycott, and that's not the statement.
The thing, I think they should. Okay, if we take all the Muslim, for example, some Muslim influencers, majority of them come from countries that have already been at least oppressed. That's something, or they've had some sort of troubles with countries like Israel. And so they already know that kind of feeling of oppression. Surely they should use their platform when they see the other Muslim brothers and sisters. They should use that platform to stop or halt any sort of aid going towards Israel. And so why shouldn't they do that?
I don't disagree with that, but I don't think we should pressure them and force them. Because look, at the end of the day, if we're forcing them to do something on their platform, it's not genuine from their side.
Yeah, and this is what happens.
And it all starts from the inside. And there's no point, and if I'm gonna go now and say, for example, guys, stop eating, I don't know, fillet of fish from McDonald's, or stop drinking Diet Coke and whatnot, what am I doing it for? I'm doing it to please now my Muslim audience, rather than support the cause of what boycotting is all about. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
I think that's what I see.
And this is what happens when
don't bully them.
our community becomes toxic. This is what happens when someone reaches a certain level. Everyone wants to bring them down and like, you have to do this and that. You done this wrong. This is not how we support each other. And this is our community becomes very toxic. You're at this position. You have this many followers. Why not calling for a boycott? Why not doing this? Then boycotting will be one issue, and then there'll be something else. Why not talk to people about this? Why not spreading Islam? Why not spreading Shi'ism? We need to take it like we need to provide these people with a space to grow themselves without putting them this kind of pressure.
But I mean, for example, you mentioned earlier with why don't the Maraji' do it? The thing is, the Maraji', their target audience isn't necessarily the younger generation. For the influencers nowadays, their main audience is young people like us. And so if we were to pressure them to put out a message, the audience is all going to be young people. And the young people are the next generation to be the functioning members of society.
No, but an influencer hasn't chosen to take that responsibility and say,
but they know,
follow me.
But they know it comes with it.
No, but
it's a platform that they've been given. So it's almost like a ni'mah, a blessing.
I think you're assuming they have responsibility.
No, but they know.
I think our Maraji have a greater responsibility.
Yeah, they have a greater responsibility, but it's a duty, of course. But the thing is, how many young people today refer or listen to Maraji' compared to how many of them listen to influencers?
No, we all no.
If that's the case, that's the fault of the individual.
We all follow Maraji', but the thing is, for example, how many hours do we spend a day on social media, for example? Or how often are we on scrolling through Instagram, TikTok? How many influencers do you see a day? And if all of them were to be pushing a message, for example, coherently, then wouldn't that make change?
So what about, you as an individual, you have an influencer who you're saying should promote or should push this certain boycott, but they might be boycotting something that you like. What about then? Maybe you believe in something, but because the larger demographic maybe opposes your view or your view of your community, and everyone's pushing the influencer, promote this. For example, you want to talk about the current conflict. People are saying, okay, promote this boycott and don't go to this place, don't go to that place. But maybe, for example, you end up pushing the whole industry away, and then you've got friends or business owners in that industry You're pushing people away, for example, from fast food. Now you're turning down all of these fast food establishments who have that connection. Maybe he has a similar franchise who's not the same, not related, but you're putting down his business too.
So please come and sit down with the on the chairs that are agree on this side and disagree on that side. So you don't know what the statement is, you either agree or disagree. Okay, so here are your statements. So you guys agree with this statement and you guys disagree with this statement. This statement says, mainstream Muslims are selective with their solidarity. It's very vague, it's very open. There's no specific solidarity, but you can make it specific if you like. But mainstream Muslims are selective with their solidarity. You agree to that, you don't agree.
I do believe that's true, that people, especially mainstream Muslims, they pick and choose what they want to support. Like, for example, one might not promote the brand, but for example, they say, I don't like this, but they don't go speak out against it. There's genocide and humanitarian causes issues going around the world. But why is they only speaking up at this one incident? When there's 1,000 other incidents where they choose not to speak up because it doesn't fit their vibe. It doesn't fit, or they don't like them, or certain individuals or whatnot.
I don't think they're selective. I think they're ignorant in their choice. And the reason why I say they're not selective, because they don't know what's happening around the world. All they know is, for example, if we're going to speak about just mainstream Muslims, so let's now leave the Shia circle, for example. Let's go to all the other sects in Islam, predominantly Sunni Muslims, for example. All they know is that the Shias are killing us in Iraq and Syria. So their solidarity is, we stand with the Free Syrian Army, for example, or we stand with anyone that's not Shia, we're going to stand with them because they're butchering us in Syria, for example. That's the mindset they have. That's what I've observed, reading on Twitter over the years, seeing YouTube videos from other sects in our religion, that they don't know the truth behind the reality. All they have is like, this is what my Maulana says, this is what my YouTube Da'wah Sheikh tells me every day from Speaker's Corner, for example, and they don't know anything else. So I think they're ignorant. If they do know, then they truly do know. I think their perception and their opinion and which side, I don't want to call it sides because you ultimately should side with Haqq, but they will change side if they know the whole truth. We as Shia, alhamdulillah, I think we see things as they are. Yeah. We're not blinded. Our judgment is not clouded because we know there's a criteria of what is haqq and what is batil. Whereas on the other side, it explains all the way from Saqifa until today why there is chaos around the world.
But you say that they're not exposed to this sort of information, for example.
No, they don't know. It's not going against haqq, for example. Do you understand?
I think
the statement was about mainstream.
In general, in general, what's the biggest stories in the media is obviously Israel and Palestine, for example. Now, I don't think that's people being selective. I think that's just what the biggest stories and that's just what's going on. That's why we're talking about it. It's not that we're focusing on this and there's other problems. I think from my point of view and the people I've seen, for example, on certain social medias where you see everything is being spread. I'm seeing things about the Congo, what's happening there in Sudan and Afghanistan with the Hazara, that's over there. So I think it's just the biggest media stories will get the most attention. I think the mainstream Muslims will still provide attention to all of these issues.
But the thing is that you have other mainstream Muslim channels that aren't really given as much attention to the topics you mentioned, like Sudan and the Congos and the Hazaras in Afghanistan, compared to how much attention they're giving to Palestine v Israel. All the focus is shifted to just that one, but then if you were to ask anyone what's happening in these other countries, no one will know.
But I don't think that's mainstream Muslims. I think that's just media. I think we don't control the media really.
Of course, but then even if you ask any one of the mainstream Muslims, they wouldn't know either. But if you go to other sects,
that's because of what they see, right? It's like his point. It's what we see, what we know. The biggest media story is this, but we need to make it a point to bring out the other stories.
Yeah, but they specifically turn their blind. You might say ignorance, but I don't think it's ignorance. I think they make a blind eye, because if you're in an influential position, right, and you're part of the mainstream media, you're not gonna know. I don't think you're ignorant to the fact that this is happening, but they choose to ignore it. Ignorance is a choice to some extent, because you can choose to ignore something and you're like, no, I'm gonna tunnel vision, look at this one perspective, 1 point, because that's what I want. And when you look at that 1 point, be like, I wanted to send this to my audience because this is the message I want. I'm gonna choose to ignore A, B, C, D. Certainly, similar to previous discussions where I'm gonna choose not to boycott A, B, C, but I'm gonna do my message. This is what I want. So they choose to ignore what they see day to day, whether it's in their own country or in their own backyard. So many people are focused on what's going on, for example, in the region in the Middle East, and less than what's going on in their own backyard, or as you mentioned, other locations where genocide is still happening. There's still heavy humanitarian discourse where no one's supporting anyone. And they want to send their message, and they choose to send that message, and they choose to ignore what they really care about.
No, I don't say something, but I might get in trouble. No, keep it in, I think. Yeah, for example, in the Shia world, a lot of people look up to the Islamic Republic of Iran, for example. So whoever Iran is siding with, or whatever cause they're supporting, and that's what we must support, and that's what we must stand with. I'm not saying this wrong. I'm not saying you shouldn't. But what about every other genocide that's happening around the world? What about all the other killings that's happening around the world? And for example, if I use Iran as an example, they're very outspoken when it comes to the genocide that's happening in Gaza. Alhamdulillah for that, and we praise them for that. And if anyone disagrees with that, I think there's something wrong with you mentally. But why are they also quiet about what's happening in Afghanistan to the Shia? Why are they also quiet about what's happening to the Pakistanis in Pakistan being killed because they're Shia? I don't hear anything. So I think even the Shias can be sided into where their solidarity lies. Hope I don't get in trouble, but that's a genuine reflection, opinion I've seen.
I think you should sit here because that's a very valid point.
But even that one also goes down to politics. So I think there's also political issues between when it comes to Iran and Pakistan, Afghanistan. But I think it boils down to
but that's the problem when I
problem.
agree with you guys. 100%.
Yeah.
100%. There's so many issues that we don't speak about.
Exactly.
The Shias getting killed in Afghanistan, no one brings it up. Like I mentioned before, Congo and Sudan, the things that's happening is insane. Like slavery levels kind of things. But obviously no one brings it up, and we have that responsibility as Shia. But the mainstream Muslims, everyone just turns a blind eye.
I mean, just mainstream media, it's just clickbait, whatever works best. Everyone's talking, everyone's protesting and hopping on, so they're going to stick to that topic. I don't think necessarily ignorance. I just think it's what pays more in terms of clickbait, reviews, or whether it's cash or comments or interaction or engagement.
No, the reason why I say ignorance is because they don't know. Like for example, what's happening in Gaza, what's happening to Khataya, the innocent women and children in Palestine, I stand in support of against what's happening against them because I am fully aware of the situation. But for example, what's happening in Sudan, I know a bit, but I'm ignorant of what's happening on the ground.
There's no coverage.
I don't have like something pushing me to saying go speak up for them because I don't know what's happening, and I think that's the fault of our ulama.
Because we have all these protests, for example.
Because we're told we should speak against all oppression.
Yeah.
But they're very selective.
But even then, I mean, I don't know if you guys have heard any coverage recently about the Uyghur Muslims in China. Yeah. Like that's been an ongoing situation for years now, but there's no coverage of it at all.
That's very controversial.
It's also very controversial.
That's very controversial because that news came out of America, and I don't believe any of it. To be honest with you, I
think it's a conspiracy.
Yeah, it's all conspiracy.
Really?
Yeah.
No, but I think there's oppression everywhere.
I think you need to read into who they are.
I think if you look at different communities, oppression as a whole, there's oppression everywhere. Whether the lesser people in certain areas who have loads of humanitarian issues, like Gaza, for example, or if you look at Afghanistan, or if you look at in Sudan, you look at in Africa, America, South America, there's problems everywhere, and people choose what they want to promote because they think what's best for them. That's again clickbait. Yeah. They don't care about the actual humanitarian cause. They care about what makes them the most money.
What also I find interesting, again, I might get in trouble for this, but if we're all here for sharing genuine opinions, something I've observed when it comes to Gaza, in particular recently what's been happening is that there are people who want to speak against what's happening in Palestine, but they just can't because if they do, they might be seen like they're aligned with the Islamic Republic of Iran, for example. So people have a lot of opinions, a lot of views, but they choose to stay quiet because it may, make it's safer for them. So I don't know. It's something I want to share, something I've observed.
Yeah. Personal agendas are kind of overcoming the truth and hack with a lot of people. Yeah.
So depending of where we align, also as Shia, we're like, okay, we're not going to go there because we don't align with who's aiding them or supporting them.
Okay, that will do, guys. Thank you. That's the end of that episode.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. As far as showing solidarity with the oppression that is happening in this world, we must look at the teachings of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam and the Holy Quran and extract our rights and responsibilities. Within a narration from the life of Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, he states, the one who wakes up in the morning and does not care about the affairs of the Muslims, he or she is not Muslim. So every day in the morning when I wake up, I have to keep in mind that there are Muslims and there are people who are facing oppression. I have to do something about it. I have to show solidarity. And I should not pick and choose. I like this group of people or I don't like this group of people. Well, this group of people, they are in the news more. Well, I'll show more solidarity toward them. And the other group, which nobody's talking about them, well, I don't know about them and I don't show any solidarity toward them. Well, especially Shias are being oppressed on a daily basis all around the world. Different countries, Shias are being oppressed. I should not pick a country and a group of people and a community and then leave the others. First and foremost, when I wake up, I should have this concern. I should worry. I should feel pain that my fellow Muslim brothers, my fellow Shia brothers and sisters are being oppressed and they are going through a lot of difficulties. The first thing that I can do is to do dua for them and have it in my mind and sincerely ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to relieve them from this anxiety and these problems and difficulties and oppression that they are facing. And then number two, if there's a diplomatic way that I can talk with people who are in the government, I can see what I can do. Financially, I can help. I can get someone's attention to this, whatever I can do in my power, keeping in mind the law of the land that I'm in. That's very important. So I should not be careless. I should be worrying about, I should do dua for them, and I should not pick and choose the side that I'm with. Oppression and dhulm is dhulm. I cannot say, well, this group of people, I like them. Well, I will feel sorry for them and I will show solidarity. This group of people, I cannot connect. I don't know anything about them. No, oppression is oppression. And I have to talk with different community members, talk with the religious leaders, talk with politicians if I can, and tell them that, okay, there are people who are being oppressed and I would like to do whatever it is in my hand that I can do. Financially, I can help them. Dua, gathering, come together and do dua for them. And the most important thing, dua for them. Before that is to do dua for the reappearance of the Imam of our time, Imam Mahdi Ajjalallah Ta'ala Faraj al-Sharif. When we do dua for the reappearance of the Imam, with his reappearance, all of the oppression in this world will finish and this whole world will be in lovable and beautiful situation that has never been. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطاهرين.